My eyes are up here. Greetings, survivors and friends, I'm SHADOWFRAX, and I must ask you a question. Do you like what you're seeing here? Well, take a few moments to mull it over if you like, but Rust is no longer a game populated by bald psychopaths. Now it's a game populated by hairy psychopaths, and if that fills you with dread, then you're just going to have to overcome it, because it's now a permanent feature. Sorry, I've been shaving those puns up for a while. So yes, as of this week, you will of course notice that now everyone has hair of some description or another. There are 2 styles per gender, 2 types of beards for the chaps, and everyone does of course qualify for a complete eyebrow, underarm and merkin makeover too. There was a lot of work involved in getting the hair to deform properly around clothing items and to fit everyone's noggins, but now this is more or less done. You should see a lot more styles and colours cropping up, along with, intriguingly, hair dyeing in the coming weeks. Just one thing to note, your new body foliage is best appreciated if you use the TSSAA anti-aliasing option in your graphics menu, which is now the default setting, and you might be glad to know that this technique has recently been revamped to give crisper results with less blurring in motion, but at a lower cost. Huzzah! Another important change to workbenches was introduced this week, which could really give you a leg up. Now, when you go to use one, you'll be given a new option. By spending scrap, you can experiment in order to produce a random blueprint relevant to that tier of workbench, with the cost increasing by tier accordingly. It also knows which recipes you've already unlocked, so there's no fear of wasting your precious junk on something you don't want. The reason for doing this was to give you an extra option when it comes to learning BPs. Now you can either go down the random route of finding them in loot, the certain method of researching using an actual item, or just throw loads of scrap at the problem and get them all eventually. Helk says he's toying with the idea of making it so you could unlock blueprints in a certain order using this method, but he's not sure how people would feel about that. Personally, I think it would be a bit too linear, much like the XP system was, and I think many of us appreciate a bit of randomness in our lives, but let me know your thoughts in the comments, please. Research costs and tiers were reduced for a number of items this week, as you can see here. High velocity arrows are now a default blueprint, and you can use BPs from within a storage container. The new nail gun's nails will embed themselves in things as of this update, and you can retrieve them just like you would arrows. They also have a bit more girth, meaning it's easier to hit things. However, nail raiding is out. The damage type was changed from bullet to arrow, so they no longer knacker doors. Personally, I think they should actually heal structures. That would be interesting. Oh, and nail guns and garage doors now have new sounds. Further to the stance recoil changes that were introduced last week, these have been removed from bows and crossbows, so no more additional inaccuracy, but of course this won't automatically turn you into Lars Anderson. It was noticed that player model poses for certain weapons looked a bit tense and scrunched up around the shoulders, and these were adjusted accordingly, and graphically, occlusion culling received a big revamp, with a breakthrough being made this week that eliminates one of the biggest bottlenecks in the system. This method is responsible for hiding players and NPCs when they're behind part of the terrain and thus out of view of the player, as you can see in this image. In turn, this increases performance. However, it was possible to remove a pre-pass step in this process, and this has freed up even more CPU overhead. In addition, it makes artists' jobs more straightforward and saves on production time. An FPS boost is predicted on mid to high range machines, but potatoes and other vegetable-based PCs are probably bottlenecked somewhere else anyway and won't notice much difference. So, sorry. Over to works in progress now, and new FX sprites are still being made via Houdini. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the launch site is having a slight makeover, namely the layout of the main factory buildings being remodeled into a more PvP focused area. This means simpler jump puzzles, cover on walkways, hanging ones to allow you to get from one side to the other, and some of the lifts being replaced by stairways. In addition to this, there'll be 2 more routes to the roof on the back and front of the building, making it harder to defend, but by the same token, radiation levels might be scaled back slightly. These changes are currently slated to happen in next week's patch. It turns out there was enough demand for admire animations to make them a worthwhile thing to work on, so yes, it looks like this will now be a thing in the not too distant future. And lastly, a big change to building is coming. It's been on the roadmap for a while, but now we have more information, and this is going to be, as they say, a game changer. Once implemented, a building privilege zone will no longer be enforced in a radius around a tool cupboard. Instead, it'll be emitted by the building blocks themselves. Tool cupboards will still be used, but there may be a limit of one per building. Upkeep is another big change that means bases will need to be topped up with resources that will then be consumed over time, and according to the roadmap, this will be of most concern to large buildings, and if not met, they will decay rapidly. As well as this, you may be overjoyed to know that more building options are going to be explored, such as half-height walls for one. More info on this next week, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments, please. Please like and subscribe if you appreciated this vid. Come and join me also on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and my Steam group. I shall, of course, catch you all rather soon, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio.